Welcome to Procurement Says No, Episode 14, Ed.
Ooh, a baker's dozen plus one.
Yes, it's Episode 14. And today we have part 2 of AI, everything AI, with our special guest star, Ashley Williams, who's back again today to talk to us more and more about stuff.
And can we draw him on whether the sky will be set fire to?
Let's hope so. But first, Ed, it's the news. Now, we don't normally do the job boards, but this one is good. It was on Linked Up.
Oh, go on.
Are you a strong people leader with a construction background and a passion for procurement? Well, here's just the job. Director, Global Construction and Energy Procurement. Join our global procurement team dedicated to deliver construction projects worldwide. You'll play a meaningful role in procurement, driving capital projects, harmonise global procurement strategy, blah, 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 blah. So it's global, it's construction. Guess who it's for? It's for Lego.
Wow, I want that job. Lego, yeah.
You're building factories and office blocks out of Lego, presumably. However, it then goes on to say, please note, for this global role, no relocation support is offered. And there's no salary or package information either, which is always a plus.
Yeah, but it's so exciting for Lego. You'd move there to Denmark, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
At your own cost, and then work for free.
Yeah, just building Lego.
Yeah, fantastic.
More news, and this was in Ground News. A study published in the journal Science Advances finds 56 of the leading brands are responsible for more than 50% of global plastic pollution, and 5 companies are responsible for a quarter of all plastic waste worldwide, according to the study, which was conducted by the Moore Institute for Plastic Pollution Research, which involved surveys of plastic waste collected from 2018 to 2022. Of more than 1.8 million pieces of waste collected, more than 900,000 had visible branding, and the researchers identified just 60 companies as the source of the majority of global plastic waste. And the 5 companies which are responsible for 25% of it, Coca-Cola is responsible for 11%, the single biggest contributor, and then the next 4 are, in order, PepsiCo, Nestle, Danone, and Altria Philip Morris. The study also found that for every 1% increase in plastic usage, its contribution to plastic pollution increases 1%. So, come on, stop with your plastic pollution, guys. Surely there can be agreement on global legislation to stop plastic bottles. Procurement people in those businesses, stop buying plastic. Find another alternative. You are responsible for a quarter of the world's plastic pollution. What are you doing, procurement people?
Nothing.
Rant over. Ed!
My son was showing me something a friend of his does, who he works with, who is originally from India, and he plays this little game of going onto Google Earth and picking a spot and then zooms in to see if there's any plastic litter. And you always find plastic litter. And I think wherever you go, I'm sure it'd be the same in the UK, but I've been out to Morocco recently, and it was exactly the same there. You go out into the desert and stuff, and it's just full of plastic.
Plastic bottles. And 11% of it is from the lovely Coca-Cola company. Sort it out.
Get your act together.
Ed, you have some procurement podcast lists.
Yeah, so this is quite exciting. We're in the charts, Rich.
More charts. Ooh.
More charts. So there are 2 charts that were spotted this week. One from an organisation called FeedSpot. They've done a chart of procurement podcasts globally.
Who knew? Procurement podcasts. I thought there was only one.
We're a new entry at 20.
Look at that. Boom. Straight in at number 20.
Procurement says no.
Oof, very, very exciting. We ought to do some collabs.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say is SIPS Futures, I don't know how they've done this, is listed as number 2. The only news from SIPS is that they're having a conference.
Are we going?
In June.
Are we hosting it?
No. I imagine they don't like us very much.
Oh. No, we love SIPS. We want to help them. We want to help SIPS. We want to help them get back to being the number 1 thing in procurement.
But we are number 20.
Oh, there you go then.
So not bad, I think.
Not bad. Not bad for a new entrant.
There's a list of 60 procurement podcasts, and we're 20th.
60 procurement podcasts. Goodness me.
Another one, there's procurement software.site have produced a list of the top procurement podcasts in IT.
Oh,
Now, I'm quite impressed with this because
we don't do IT.
we've come in at 26.
I wonder if that's because of #Zip, because of our many mentions of Zip.
Yeah.
Some sort of machine learning that's spotting that on our feed, and so it puts us into the top 30.
Yeah, but I'm dead chuffed. I think 26, it's not bad, is it, really?
Not bad.
I don't know how they work this out. We are just ahead of the RFP Secrets podcast.
Which is a personal favourite of mine.
And at 30 is Love Procurement.
So there you go. We all love procurement. Any stats, Ed, on the podcast?
Yeah, I was quite interested in where our podcast is being downloaded. Obviously, obvious places, like our biggest market is the United Kingdom. What stood out for me was that our podcast is being downloaded in Haiti. We've also had downloads in Malawi, Dominican Republic, Slovakia, and lastly, Vietnam.
Vietnam again, yes.
It's quite strange, is it, that people think it has educational value? I mean,
Well, it does. There is huge educational value in our podcast, Eduardo. It's educational, it's informative, and it's something else.
One other news item. There's a piece in Spend Matters from a lady called Mina Ibrahim, and she talked about navigating ERP integrations. Now, we've compiled a list of the top 10 most popular ERPs.
Oh,
What's the world coming to when you've got a top 10 list of the favourite ERPs? It's not really a topic, is it, really?
I'd go for SAP as number one, Oracle as number two.
You're spot on. Yes, it
That's
is.
correct.
SAP, because we love SAP. Oracle. But what's interesting,
What's at number three?
Microsoft.
Oh,
But you don't generally think about that, do you, as a procurement professional? You think about people like SAP and Oracle. Infor are number 4, and then Sage are 5. Workday at 6.
work?
So Workday are HR-related technology, branching out into procurement and finance. And then at 7, IFS. And then at 8, Epicor. And then Quad, never heard of them. And then finally, IBM. But yeah, no, it's interesting.
Well, actually, no, it's not.
Isn't it? Oh, isn't it?
Ah,
But we're still with the old stalwarts, aren't
Yeah.
we? You don't get fired for choosing SAP, I suppose.
SAP is the one for me.
Yes, exactly. But not for me.
And that's the news. Now it's time for Ask Rich and Ed. So this one is from Lisa Norden from Helsinki in Finland. I've just taken over sourcing for travel and have little knowledge of the category. Why should we bother using one of the big corporate travel agencies when everything can be done online, direct with hotels and airlines, or through Booking.com or Skyscanner or others? What do you reckon, Ed?
sounds like the Wild West. The first question on travel, the starting point is the travel policy and what's needed and what the rules are, not who you use. You've just taken over the category. You don't know much about it. Before we think about who we're going to buy from and who's going to provide the service, hotels, trains, planes,
Automobiles.
I think you've got to think about what your policy is. There may be reasons in your business why you need to use a big corporate travel agency. Okay, so lots of companies want to know where their key personnel are all of the time in case something happens. We've had lots of horrid events around the world, terrorist events, stuff like that, planes being blown up, such like. Or your business may well need to understand where everybody is and what's going on, etc. And there may be certain standards that need to be applied in the way that you travel, the hotels you stay at, etc. You might want to have a certain level of control, which is why you might use an agency, because the agency will apply your policy. For some companies, using Booking.com to book hotels could be entirely reasonable as long as they follow the rules. So if you're saying use only £60 hotels, $60 hotels, $80 motels, whatever, then yeah, you could. But it's sort of, you need to make sure that you can apply it. You could use Skyscanner and such like, but I think you need to think within the bounds of your policy and what your corporate requirement is as a business. I mean, I know some businesses I've been involved in where within travel, we've bought traveller tracking services, which is separate to the agency. So we know where people exactly are, where they are, where the aircraft is, literally.
Yeah. I agree with all that. I think it depends on volumes and numbers of users. If you're a big organisation, it might be worth having it all in place, as you say, just in terms of managing information. But also there's kickbacks, there's service levels, which might be worth happening. I think you're right. It might end up just being the Wild West if you just have it all separate. Travel is one of those categories where users will always claim they can get a better deal anyway, won't they? So, and when they can't, or when something goes wrong, they blame procurement anyway. So you can't win, I think, on travel.
Just one other thing that I did come across with a company I work with is safety at a hotel for your staff, and particularly for female members of staff, and how they feel about personal security. To stay in a hotel that's in the wrong side of town or doesn't have secure parking, for example. And if you allow people to go through, booking.com and things like that, and other platforms, you might find that you don't adhere to some of those basic safety standards that you'd expect to have in place. So maybe sometimes it's better to pay a little bit more to make sure that your staff are secure.
And this is the next question, which sort of follows on from what you just said there, Eduardo. This is from Charlie Cram in Hong Kong. Should we use Airbnb for staff accommodation rather than hotels? What are the pros and cons? So another similar to the last one.
The pro of Airbnb is probably comfort. I've come across this. I was talking to somebody about this who's got an Airbnb, and they were having sort of workmen, fitters who go around the country fitting out places. They preferred to put them in Airbnbs that they had a sort of home away from home. Mm-hmm. So for some people, it can be more pleasant. It can also be cheaper than a hotel. And the accommodation, if you've got a couple of people in a Airbnb with a couple of bedrooms or 2 or 3 bedrooms.
Would that be a long-term, as a long-term thing or as a short-term thing?
No, short-term, I think. Airbnb is a ready alternative to hotels, isn't it, I think?
With hotel chains, I guess certainly in the early days of Airbnb, with hotel chains, you know what you're getting, I guess, in terms of brand promise to an extent and loyalty programs. Airbnb have talked about their super guest thing. Is that a thing yet?
Yes.
Airbnb it is now.
You can certainly see what the Airbnb looks like, can't you? Because I've booked holidays using Airbnb, and you can see what the accommodation. I think you get very regular ratings on Airbnb, so you can see that. I think that the con to it is perhaps the flip of security, whereas some people might prefer to be in a hotel because they've got their own room, the door's locked, all that sort of stuff. They feel secure.
The only thing I can think of there, Charlie, is that if you've got the whole of the business faffing about looking at Airbnb sites all the time, your general efficiency of the business is going to go downhill. Everyone spending 20% of their day looking at hotel rates might not be the best use of their time.
Right. Next question. This is again from the United States. Cal Lewis, who's based in Cincinnati. One for you, Rich. What is above the line marketing, and why won't our marketing team work with me to help them reduce their prices and improve their deals? They're not listening, Rich.
Above the line marketing is all the big, unfocused kind of generating brand awareness stuff, isn't it? Like TV advertising and radio advertising and billboards and untargeted ads on social media. So the less targeted side. So it's the real creative stuff. And I guess marketing people worry that procurement people don't get creativity, darling. And will try to put a price on it, and they'll try to be logical, and they'll try to be rational, which in the world of marketing and creativity is just off limits, sweetie.
Yes. Perhaps, Cal, using the word price is very offensive to a marketing person. I think that perhaps you should talk about value and value add and creativity within your messaging to them. So I think it's perhaps tailoring your message to suit your audience. You're there to help them get more from their suppliers, get more creative ideas, or get better promotional programs, etc. So don't use the word price with marketing folk. They think about shiny things.
Yeah, think about creativity, innovation, things of beauty, shiny, lovely things.
Yeah. They're watching adverts on TV these days. I think that's gone by the wayside.
Yeah, that's
they're really dull.
Yeah, there's some really crap adverts. Yeah. If you ever watch telly, do you watch telly? What's telly? And the next one is from Roger Blanc from Marseille in France. In the opinion of Rich and Ed, which spend areas offer the biggest savings opportunities?
Whichever ones we're working on, of course. No.
Point Ed at it. He'll be just making savings left, right and centre.
Yeah, just like tail spend. In terms of percentages, I think I've worked with a few clients looking at their tail, talk to people like Amazon and others, and you seem to be able to get about 20% for your tail.
Yeah.
So I think not necessarily the biggest absolute number, but in percentage terms, probably the biggest area. And then I think anything that's untouched.
Yeah.
It's rare to ever see a category that you can't influence. Maybe the exception, we talk about enterprise agreements and stuff when they're in flight.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends on the type of business you're in and what you spend where, but I think I agree. It's the ones where no one has paid attention for the last 10 years. It's the ones where it's not strategic to the business, or it's perceived as non-strategic, or it's perceived as too hard, or it's perceived as not interesting. They're the ones that you should have a look at and do some marketplace analysis. See where the barriers to entry are low, where there's possibility of substitution, where there's loads of new suppliers or new entrants. Then they're the ones to look at. But yeah, it's difficult to say. It depends on each business, isn't it? Some businesses may not have looked at their IT for years. Some businesses may not have looked at their corporate travel for years, et cetera, et cetera. So look for the area where the last time someone signed a contract was in 1937.
Hopefully you're not still buying the same stuff that you bought in 1937.
Right, the next one is from Sebastian Overt from Melbourne in Australia. Would you recommend any other procurement podcasts to your listeners that you listen to, Ed?
I know people are going to be concerned when I tell you this. The only podcast I've ever listened to is our podcast.
But now we know that there are lots of others out there. We didn't know this before, but we're actually in the top 20 of one and 26 of whatever it was, 60 procurement podcasts. You know what we need to do, Ed? We need to listen to them all over the next month or so and give detailed feedback and notes on all of them.
Good luck, Rich.
So we're welcoming back Ashley Williams, technology partner from Mishcon de Reya LLP. Hello, Ashley, again.
Hello, thank you for having me back. So excited to be on part 2 of this journey.
Fantastic. Ashley is a partner specialising in non-contentious technology and data protection matters, and as a member of the European AI Alliance. So what sort of questions does AI struggle to answer? Like, what is the purpose of human existence? Why are we here? Or even, why is AI here?
Yeah, it hasn't solved the meaning of life yet, Richard.
No, it's not. I was going to say, what's the answer to life, the universe, and everything? It's not 42. It's what is it?
Yeah, I think AI is very good at certain tasks at the moment. We know that if you put it to a task, it's very good at doing it, and that constant focus, that vertical approach is very good. I think people are still running after the holy grail of it being able to do everything. It takes your children to school, it cooks, it cleans, it does everything. I think the reality is there is limits to AI, and I think the main thing that we try and focus on and what we try and push our clients down, we act for a lot of AI companies and also customers who are consuming these solutions, is all about what is the real problem? What are you trying to solve? Start with that. Using AI to solve nice to haves is not useful, and it's not how companies purchase. It's just not how they do it. It's about what is the real big problem, and then the question is AI the solution? Because it's not always a solution. There are times where actually there's no point in putting a technology solution to solve this problem. It might be needed to be human manpower, people power, but that's the starting point always, is what is the big problem? Is AI the solution? And if it is the solution, then you go down the track of, okay, which AI solution is the right solution?
And which question do you think Apple were trying to answer when they came up with the new Apple virtual reality mask?
Trying to figure out Apple's mindset process, I think, is is beyond me.
It is solving a problem. It's responding to the revenue problem, Rich.
Right.
And what are the chances then of? I mean, you've talked about a lot of it is risk based, but given that half of the world's leaders are despots or unelected loonies or puppets of the WEF, should we be generally afraid for the sort of midterm future?
I think we have, as a society, decided that now is the right time to really regulate AI, which I think I am I should have declared my bias at the very beginning. I am pro AI.
Yeah.
I am very pro AI, but I'm also pro regulation of AI because there's a rationale for that. It gives you the guardrails. You know what the rules of the game are, and therefore you know how to operate in theory if they're right. And also it makes sure that we're not overstretching. We're not going beyond the bounds that we should do. So I think in terms of we probably are a bit late to do that, if we're being completely honest. This area has been unregulated for a long time, but it feels like now, in terms of looking at the mid to long term future, we hopefully are going to avoid a disaster. The reality is we know there are people that are playing around with solutions that are testing the boundaries, really pushing the envelope, and that is worrying. Hopefully no one presses the big red button, but that there is that possibility. But I think bringing in regulation now, really focusing on safety and avoiding the really big no-nos, hopefully sets us up well for finding solutions that are right for the market, that are going to move us forward as a society without causing a huge disaster. That's the hope.
What sort of boundaries are you seeing then at the moment, Ashley? What sort of things where you think, where people are going, that is pushing up the boundaries of safety?
There's all the driverless cars is a great one in terms of that is really pushing the envelope. The other one is where AI meets data, the use of data. We've all heard about it. All the cases at the moment across the US and the UK are all about, and the EU are all about scraping. Really, it's an old problem. It's a problem all the time, but it's about scraping data. And just because I make something public does not mean that you lawfully can go and use that data for whatever you want to do with it. We all know data is the king at the moment. It's more valuable than oil. It's the most valuable thing that any company has. And I think using data in a potentially edge case way where we've not thought about it is where we're probably going to see some of the more interesting case law and the more interesting disaster moments, in terms of, we hadn't thought about using data in this way, pushing it into an AI solution and getting outputs which are quite frankly quite scary. I mean, that right now there's a lot of companies are obsessed with intent prediction. So if you go onto a website and you start scrolling about a new car, Richard wants a new car and he's looking at all of these new cars online, the ability for solutions coupled with data to then predict when you are actually going to buy that car is probably is one area where lots of companies are very interested in trying to find the answer to intent prediction. And
that's Minority Report. Then we need to bring Minority Report into the zeitgeist here.
Yeah,
Ed has committed a crime, or he will do in 16 years' time.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. That would make the whole world safer.
Lock him up now.
Question for me, Ashley, on that stuff is that true AI or is it machine learning? And do you see a differentiation? Because I think there's a lot of nonsense spoken about AI where the computer's sort of making its own decisions and learning versus looking at lots and lots and lots of data and just extrapolating it through using empirical evidence to predict when something's going to happen. And I think certainly when you hear people talking about AI, I think the two things get mixed up a bit.
Yeah, it sounds like you were part of the committee that was deciding the definition of AI for the EU AI Act, Ed. Heard this question before. I mean, so AI, if we talk about AI being the umbrella term, that's the all-encompassing everything in bucket, and then machine learning is a subset of that. You teach a solution to do something based on data and learning from patterns and trends, and it's this is a turtle, this is a turtle, this is a turtle on its back approach. But I think it's it's important to not lose the distinction of how we talk about subsets of AI, so machine learning being one of them. But ultimately, that's just the way that we're training the solution to do something or making the solution work. That's the processing piece, the training piece. The output, you can still have a machine learning solution that predicts intent. That's a possibility. So I think it's important to think about that when we're talking about what the solution is and how it's trained and how it works. And that's part of the EU regulation of explainability, and that's really important. And more providers are going to need to be able to explain how their solution works. Gone are the days of black box, something in, something out, magic in between. That's no longer possible. The use case, what are we actually using it for, and what it's going to be put to, is probably the more interesting bit, I think, in terms of where we're using it.
And is the more advanced sort of thinking coming from the smaller businesses, Ashley, or is it the big behemoths that are coming up with the more interesting things.
This is maybe where I need an edit, Richard. Not Chatham House rules. I think the answer is, we know there's a huge amount of talent in these large tech giants. They purposely hoover up the talent. We know they're a massive brain. The reality is, I spend every day with high growth companies, and those high growth companies are really at the coalface and pushing the envelope. Those are the ones that are really testing the boundaries and chasing after something new. They're nimble, they're quick, they can find things out quicker. They're willing to pivot. Like, it's very exciting. And we see that in the regulation. There's reference to startups and trying to balance the field. The competition authorities, we know, are trying to avoid what we've had before, which is big tech giants deciding the way forward, and we all singing and dancing to their tune. We're trying to avoid that. I think the reality is that the startups are the way of the future in this space.
Actually, I think just to protect you and your the firm that you're a partner in, this has been ever thus for all technologies, isn't it? It's not peculiar to tech startups, is it? There's always been the massive corporations. There's been upstarts coming through. Lots of them get acquired by the big organization because that's how they grow in the end, because they lose that sort of organic growth momentum, and then one or two upstarts make it all the way, don't they?
Yeah, I think that's right. And we're seeing a huge amount of VC money and trade money going into startups in this space. They're chasing after that holy grail. Everyone wants to be a unicorn. And I think the tech giants have to be everything for everyone. That's the headache they have. Whereas startups can be something for someone. Like, that's a different approach. They can be a bit more vertical in their outlook.
They're looking for a particular problem that they're trying to solve, basically, whereas the big players are just going, we just want to do everything and be an umbrella for everything.
Yeah, if you're Google or Microsoft, where you effectively are servicing the entire world, your solution has to really work for the entire world. That is a bit of a constraint in terms of innovation. Like, your focus is what is pervasive, what cuts across our entire customer base. Whereas I think startups can have that a bit more focused approach to, we're solving this problem.
Never ever type Google into the Google search engine either. Remember, kids.
The thing you have to think about is the financial consequences for big organizations of major innovation. So, don't know exactly the answer to that, but that there is an implication there. Whereas if you're a small startup, you don't really care about that stuff. You've got an idea, you're pursuing it, you're a bunch of individuals, it fails, you start up again. If you're SAP or similar, can you really do that? And can you afford to do it? You write down your balance sheet by 10 billion, that's 10 billion hit to your P&L statement. So there's other things at play here, aren't there, I think?
Yeah, hugely. I think the converse is true in terms of, like, the market might write that value down for you if you don't do it. If let's take marketing and advertising as a sector. Content generation, we've all seen an absolute boom with generative AI. No one can stand still. If you are a marketing and advertiser and you don't have some kind of Gen AI aspect to your business, the worry is you're non-competitive. Like, everyone's going to run past you, and so you can't stand still. So there are some sectors that I think get a raw deal here, and content generation is it, where you have to move quicker and you have to take that risk, because the reality is, if you don't move, the market will write down that value for you in terms of your intangible asset value. And we never talk about that for startups. Like, that is not a measurement or a metric that we talk about at all.
The bigger the company gets, the more risk averse it gets, the more cautious it gets, the more bureaucratic it gets. Whereas if you're a small startup, things happen quickly because you just talk to each other and go, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I started my career on the other side of the fence with financial institutions, the banks, and the big giant tech companies. That's where I cut my teeth, and a brilliant way to start. There is just a slower movement because you're a bigger organization. We all know that. And then you move on to the VC world and VC backed companies, and suddenly everything is at pace, which has its downsides as a lawyer as well, I can tell you. But it's that nimbleness, I think we call it, that agility, to be able to just, today I'm doing this, tomorrow I'm doing something else.
I'll get back to you in 2 weeks. That's not allowed in your line of work, is it?
I mean, 2 seconds, I think. This now. This is why probably I'm embracing AI so much. I'm like, my job is not going to change. I'm just going to be able to actually respond to people in the time frames that they actually want it, which is about 20 seconds.
Could AI, though, ultimately replace all lawyers?
No, we're too valuable. We're far too valuable, Richard. We've seen so much ink spilt on AI replacing people. I'm doing this day in, day out. I have done this for the last 10 years. And I think all I've ever seen in this space is more jobs produced. It's more markets, new jobs. Like, it's not replacing jobs. And I think, the regulation has kind of enshrined humans within the loop. So we're not going anywhere. We need to be in there from a legislative perspective. And it's about repurposing people. That's the real key, and that is scary because that involves change. But we've seen it before. The Industrial Revolution. We've got history. We've got lessons learned for how we do this. It's just about repurposing. So, my job, for example, as a lawyer, I can service so many companies, but there will be a ceiling to that where I'm like, okay, I can't service anymore. Whereas actually now with the use of AI, maybe that ceiling becomes much higher, and I can service a lot more people, and that's quite exciting to me, I think.
Ashley Bot.
Yeah, the Ashley Bot. Perfect.
I think people have talked about this forever, though. I think you could go back, as you say, to the Industrial Revolution and marches by people striking because automated looms are being implemented or whatever.
They'll never work, those automated looms.
No, they didn't, did they? No.
They're not worth it. Like, we've seen it already like content generation again is a perfect one. The writer strikes in the US, we've seen this happen already, and they are right to do that because there are issues that are going to hit people quicker than others. That's the reality, and we know content generation. We've seen a massive boom. They're right to strike and protect their rights, but it's about finding, okay, well, this is now how I'm being used in a different way and how I can add value. And this is the most interesting question for me, is where we place value. What do we value? Is that going to change? With copyright, for example, we value authors' intellectual creation, and therefore we protect that. But is there a world where actually we value prompt engineers, where actually the way that you prompt is so interesting and so unique that we need to give you value to protect you, and the society moves along and says, yes, this role is pivotal for the future. We need to give value to this, and therefore we're going to change our societal norms slightly. Those are really probably very big questions, but those are the ones that I think are the most interesting in terms of where, as a society, we decide we put value.
Sounds like you're a closet sociologist, not a lawyer.
Feels like I've done this internal view of myself and the world, and I'm just spouting out my ideas as I speak.
Welcome to our world. This is what we do.
Welcome to Procurement Says No.
Most of it's nonsense, what we say there. So just in terms of that sort of content provider and creativity, where does this take us? Because it says, we'll do an AI generated new Rolling Stones album that recreates Charlie Watts playing drums.
Yeah, and I think this is the area where it's so interesting, where the output mimics someone or something famous like that. We're seeing a lot of challenges around that. I'm a massive Adele fan. I'll announce my bias again. And we see new music being created through pushing in her music and using AI solutions to generate something. That space is going to be regulated. That has to be addressed pretty quickly. And the reason why that is because it goes to revenue. You are generating something that takes advantage of my name. It's almost like an endorsement or like a passing off piece where people think it's coming from me. And the world, we have a framework of passing off or unfair competition that already governs that, or endorsement or mimicking. We have those regulations, and that the world there is going to be put to a stop fairly quickly. But it does become interesting in terms of when people die
at the record company party on their hands at last, a dead star.
When people die and they say they have things that they've not released, or they've got a huge catalog that could be used to create new content through AI solutions, actually we're going to have to start writing the rules of the game for that. Those are the kind of conversations that will be happening now already in terms of future development. We could go away and create a whole new Whitney Houston album, for example, from the content that we have already. But there is a question of how do we do that? What are the rules? What's appropriate? Those kind of questions.
There's also the question of why. Why would you do that?
Which is a legend, and we need it. You're getting an insight into my music taste, I think, on this podcast.
So we often talk about the end of AI will be when we all set fire to the sky. But given that you're a big Adele fan, can you give us any insight into setting fire to the rain?
Surely that needs to be edited out. I think like we all focus on what is the worst case scenario. Like, I'm a lawyer, that is my day-to-day job. I think the reality is, as I said before, like bringing in the right regulation and putting a stop to that is important now. I see things day in, day out where I'm like, oh, this is quite scary. This is not just a good to have, moving the dial. This is a scary piece of tech.
Tell us what? Tell us, come on, give us an example.
I can't, we're pivoting, we're making it less scary. But those are the things that I think, they are there. Look at cloning, for example. When we look back at early 2000s, where we suddenly realized we can clone things. Let's clone a sheep. Those kind of questions are going to be addressed in the AI world as well. Like, we can do X. Should we do that? No, we shouldn't. We really shouldn't do that. We're in a world of innovation. Innovation isn't new. It's just a different form of innovation. But hopefully, we've got enough lessons learned to avoid the big gotcha moments of, oh, shouldn't have done that. We've hit the red button approach.
Luckily, we've got Hollywood to keep us in line, haven't we?
Thank God for that. Yeah. We've all seen the blockbusters, the iRobot, the big ones. We know what to avoid. I think we've got this, guys.
The challenge is, going back to your point about regulation within the European Union, is what the rest of the world does, doesn't it? And what, to Richard's point earlier about, there's more and more of the world is run by despots than it was 20 years ago. So are we going to find regimes where it's just unfettered? We know that there's issues around cloning, to your point a moment ago, where certain nations are doing things that perhaps we wouldn't feel palatable. In the way that they're developing cloning, the same could happen with AI, couldn't it?
It could. I guess the thing that keeps us in line is capitalism, revenue. The reality is all AI companies, even the smallest ones that we start with on day one, have a global outlook. So, they're, even if they're based in the UK or the US, wherever they're based, their customer base is global. And that's a real powerful tool for regulating, because what you do then is you look to the highest threshold. Where's the highest threshold? And the EU is too big a jurisdiction to ignore. So that means effectively, if you blink at the EU, you're caught by their legislation. So blinking at them, you're in. So, okay, fine, I have to comply with this, and therefore you're forced to be regulated to a higher standard. Even if you're based in the US, there are very few AI companies. I would struggle to give you an example of one that is purely domestic and therefore is only doing something in that country. The best example I can ever give someone is infrastructure. If you're doing an AI solution around a train line, for example, of how people move, that might be quite domestic in nature, but eventually you're going to finish that project and you're going to look to France or somewhere else to do the same project. So I think the reality is capitalism is a great measure.
Thank God for capitalism. Capitalism will save us. Woo!
Thank God for capitalism. Finally, it comes into its own. But I think that's the reality of, like, every company we work for, is main question we get asked every day is, what is the high watermark and what do I need to comply with? Here it is. You might differentiate depending on what country you then are operating in, but largely you're going to be held to a standard that we think is appropriate. And the EU is purposeful in that approach. Their extraterritorial effect of you're in, everyone's regulated. Like, that is a purposeful approach, because they do believe they are the best jurisdiction to protect the fundamental rights and freedoms of people, society, and environment.
Ashley, one last party shot. What would you like to leave our listeners with?
I would like to leave them with the piece that we talked about earlier of AI use is about finding the problem. What is the actual problem you're trying to solve? And then, is AI the answer? If I had to leave one message to either supplier or customer, that is the most important thing. And it's not about using AI for nice to have. It's about the must have problem.
Oh, beautiful. Is there anything you want to plug, actually?
Mishcon AI Resource Center. And I'd love to direct people over there to have a look at some of the content we put. If you're interested in AI, it's about making it interesting and bringing it to life. So yeah, Mishcon AI Resource Center. Please go and have a look.
So for our second episode, that was fantastic again. Thanks very much, Ashley, for your input again.
Thank you for having me again. I look forward to coming back for a third time.
Your liberty. Woo.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for your time.
And I just want to say, Ashley, thank you. Not only lawyer, humanist, sociologist, and economist, all locked into one person.
Ooh, all those things.
Getting a good deal, aren't you? Cheap resource.
Thanks again. Cheers.
No, really appreciate it. It's great.
And that's it for episode 14. More AI stuff. Thank you again to Ashley Williams. And thank you to you, Eduardo, for your insightful questions.
Oh, you should keep on thanking me.
He's a giant. He's a giant of intellect.
It's just making people think that you know what you're talking about, isn't it?
See you all again next time. Bye.
Coolio. Grand.
I think we need some data from the Teacher Institute. Yes, we need to do a whole episode on that.
A study of tech.
A study of everything.
Yeah.
All of the things. The Teacher Institute's study of everything. Study.
With AI.
Would you recommend any other procurement podcasts to your listeners that you listen to?
Why would you listen to a podcast about procurement?
I don't listen to any podcasts.
It must have a very limited audience.
Yeah, exactly. There's some really stupid people out there. You wonder how they get on, really, don't you?